Are you able to see my screen? Okay. So we'll just try to understand more practically how we can recognize the physical structures and logical structures. Okay. Now, first time beginners who are getting into the database, you will be having some kind of inconvenience in the process, but just don't worry. If you're a non-technical student, you just follow me through the process. As we go down through the course and as we go on adding up with your Oracle in practical side, we'll be getting more details about this logical and physical structures as a concept. But just try to understand the constructs very carefully for the next few minutes as I'm going with you. Now, whenever we develop a database application, we said that we develop the application for a real-time problem that is existing. So your client is definitely speaking with you. And for the criteria of what exactly your client is speaking with you as a problem, for that you're definitely designing the solution. Do you agree with me? So your client should definitely give you the problem in a more clear way. If your client is not keeping the problem in proper way in front of you, now I don't think you can do any great wonders. So let us just try to concentrate on the criteria of what exactly the client is speaking with us, how we need to understand the concept of the logical and physical structures. Logical and physical structures is a concept what you need to first catch. Be very, very clear about it. So just come along with me through the criteria, okay? So to understand the criteria of the logical and physical structure, let us pick up one small illustration. Let me say like one day my client is speaking with me and is trying to give me a small manual form, okay? This is one of the manual form. What my client is fundamentally giving me and is saying that this form is used in my business for collecting the data of the students. Okay. So that's a manual paper form. What is giving you? Are you following me? Now, your client will tell you the problems what he's facing while he's using this particular piece of the manual implementation. So what he's saying is the problem with manual data entry is first is saying that data is not uniformly collected. Okay, because different people can write the data in different ways. Okay, everybody may not give the say like spellings and all these things in a very proper way. The second thing what he's saying is casing of the data is not consistent. Means casing in the sense is saying that some data is being collected in capital letters, some data is getting collected in lowercase. Third, some data is missing as it is not entered. Okay, in a manual form, people may be negligent that they don't want to enter the data. The fourth what he's saying is searching a particular student information is taking huge time. Okay, fifth, modifications are critical when demanded. You see, he's going on giving huge amount of constructive problems what he's having. And he's now asking you, because you're a computer science graduate and you said you know some technology. Now the client is saying that please give me a solution for coming out of all these problems and manage my business in a more better way. And he may also say, like he's saying that analysis of my business is very difficult. Okay, analysis is looking very difficult for him. That's what he's trying to say. So these all kinds of problems is trying to keep it in front of you. Now, if you are a computer science graduate, don't you think it's your responsibility to develop a solution that can make him come out of all these particular problems or not? So if you can't give such a kind of solution, I think you are a failure. Now that solution you will give with which technology is the client is specifying? Is the client is telling that use this technology for developing the solution? Is the client is saying anything like that? Hello, are you there? So client never specifies any particular technology. No. Client never specifies any technology. Client wants a solution. Client never says, please use this language or that language. He never says that. Unless and until the client is scientific by nature and he knows that this particular kind of scientific implementation can be done only with a particular technology, then he'll tell you. But in these kind of applications, he's least bothered. He's least bothered about the kind of solution you give with what kind of technology. Finally, he wants a solution, that's all. So when he is approaching me, let us say, okay, when my client is technically approaching me, now don't you think that according to the technology in which I am very much proficient, I may take my choice of operating with my construct? Do you agree with me? So now don't worry what kind of language I'm picking up or anything, man. Okay, just follow me, that's all. If you are an engineering graduate, all the engineering graduates know one language called as C language. Therefore, I'm picking up from that side. Now, I want one answer from you. Now, this is some structure given by the client. Do you agree with me? This is the structure of the business data provided by client. Am I correct? See, you should be very quickly responsive in the chat box, okay? Else what happens is I'll think you're understanding and I'll make a move away. If any issue is there, I cannot come back and answer you. So can I just say that this is a structure of the business data provided by the client? Definitely yes. Okay. Now I want some answers from you. In this structure, can you tell me what is this? In the structure, whatever you're seeing there is what exactly? Exact terminology what I gave you in my discussions in the previous classes. Metadata. Very good. Great. Okay. So this is called as metadata. So whenever a client is speaking with you, your client is actually providing what? Metadata. Even if your client is providing you any business data, you should always ask your client to explain the business, but not the values in the business. Values are not important for you. Now, suppose say like, here we are trying to fill the data. Now, suppose select student ID is 1002. Student's name is Mr. Sampath, and the father's name is Ravi Kumar. Now I want some answer from you. These all things are what? These all things are what? Business data. Okay, that is business data. Now, even when business data is not there, if your client is giving you the metadata, you are able to understand the business very effectively or not. Now, to my software technology, whatever I'm going to use Oracle or I'm going to use XYZ, don't worry. To my software technology, whatever I'm going to use, I have to make my software technology first understand the metadata or understand the business data. What is your opinion? I should make my software to understand the metadata. So in whichever technology I am convenient, okay, in whichever technology I am convenient, in relevant to that technology, I will build some programmatical structure. I'll build my programmatical structure. So watch carefully. Say like I am very much proficient in my C language. Then I think using my C language, I may be designing a structure that is looking similar to the requirement of my client's metadata standards. Am I correct? So using the language called as C, I created one structure by name student, which will collect the student ID in the form of an integer. It will collect the student's name in the form of a character pointer. In that way, don't you think that I'm just declaring all the required components according to the syntax of my C language, which can basically represent the structure given by my client. Am I correct? So finally, our agenda is very clear now. If you say that you want to come to any software technology, you want to come and work in the IT industry for any software technology, the first requirement is understanding the data structure that is provided by the client for the sake of the data what he wants to manage. And in the technology what you said you have learned, you should know how to design that particular requirement that can represent the criteria of the end users business data, that you have to learn. Now this how effectively you can learn. According to that, your efficiency and your success to the requirement will be established. Be very, very clear about that. So let us understand few things here now. Here we want to understand what is logical structure and what is physical structure. Okay, that is the main intention for us. Now you need to answer very properly as I'm going through the construct. The structure is actually given by whom? The structure is actually given by whom? The client. So can I say the businessman? The structure is given by the businessman. Yes or no? Now, businessman, can he understand every component of the structure or he cannot understand? He can understand. So, just catch up. Businessman provides a structure which he can understand very practically with all the elements. Are you getting me? So according to the businessman's perspective, try to understand, according to the businessman's perspective, this is physical structure. Okay, this is a physical structure. Okay, according to businessman's perspective, it is physical structure. So physical structure is nothing but anything for which you are the owner. Okay, physical structure is anything for which you are the owner. Am I clear with you? Am I clear with you? Now let us say, like, after I started developing this structure, after I developed this structure, now one day my businessman was speaking with me and is asking me, Satish, I gave you some kind of problem the other day, can you show me how you're developing that particular problem? Then I said, like, sir, it's going very wonderful, don't worry. And then I made him come to my, I made him look into my laptop or desktop where this particular C language structure is there, and I am explaining the structure now. I said, like, so this is what is the structure I created now for your business data, what you gave me. How many times businessman can understand this? How many times your businessman can understand this? Is it possible? Not really, unless and until he is also having knowledge of C language. Yes or no? Now, let us assume that your businessman is not having any kind of knowledge to the C language. Then definitely, I think he's very much confused about this. Do you agree with me? You may just get confused and say, like, sir, you may just say, Satish, I did not understand what is exactly you're doing. I gave you student ID and I said so clearly that you need to collect the data here. Now you're saying something like student ID, you kept a semicolon and where you will collect the data. In that way, he could be speaking with you. But the structure is understood by the programmer. Am I correct? So try to understand the constructs very carefully, man. Okay, you just watch here. Developer is providing the structure which he can understand very practically. Okay, which he can understand very practically with all the elements. Okay, if you are a C language programmer, definitely you can understand everything of this. Are you catching my point? Now, according to the developer's perspective, okay, according to the developer's perspective, that is a physical structure for him. Are you getting me? Am I clear? Because developer is the owner of this particular structure. So according to the developer, that C language structure is physical structure for him. But here I want one answer from you. This physical structure, what the developer has designed, be very clear. This physical structure, what the developer has designed, is only possible because this physical structure of the C language was able to be developed because of logically analyzing the business requirements provided by the client. Am I correct? Am I correct? So be very, very clear. For a C language developer, that becomes a logical structure. Am I clear with you? That becomes a logical structure for your C language developer. Am I clear? Now, this particular structure, whatever you're having here, what you developed in the programming environment, for the businessman, it becomes what? Can tell me. For the businessman, that will become what? Logical structure. So you can make a standardized definition for logical and physical. So logical and physical is a perspective. Are you catching the point? From which side you are looking into it, according to that, it becomes logical or physical. Therefore, one simple thing you can always say is any structure that is created by you and you are the owner of it, that becomes a physical structure to you. You develop that physical structure by analyzing which particular data or that collection of the data, that becomes a logical structure for you. In this way, is this construct is clear? Can I remove this from the screen? First time beginners, you have to look into this video again and again. Okay, you have to look into this particular video again and again. Else it will be a problem for you throughout your career in IT industry. So logical and physical constructional structures you have to understand by a state of analysis. Be technically very clear about this. Now, let us just go further. Okay, let us just go further. If you are already a programmer from C language, now I think definitely you have an idea. Can we use this particular structure directly for storing the data? Can I use this structure for directly storing the data? No. Okay, we cannot use it. So, until we do not create an instance out of this structure, you cannot store the data. Am I correct? Now, say like you have created this structure and you are the owner of this. So that became physical structure for you. Now, you want to collect the data for students. Now, when you want to collect the data for student, I think you're going to the next level. You're just moving down to the next level of your constructs, where you're creating one instance. You're creating one instance out of this particular structure by giving the name of the instance as MBA. And you're saying that you will collect some 30 students data. Now, let us say like one of your colleague is creating this particular instance, man. Okay. Now for your colleague, this MBA becomes what? Tell me now. For your colleague, that MBA becomes what? Physical. Okay, it becomes a physical structure. For that particular colleague, your student becomes what? Logical. Are you getting the clarity, gentlemen? So when you read the definition of logical and physical structures from your books, technically we cannot catch them. See, if you're having proficiency and your experience, you can catch. But for first time beginner, he just gets confused. Now, I think I need to collect my data into this now. So I'm collecting my data index by index to my particular student ID, student name, father's name, and all these things now. Am I clear? Now, whatever data you're collecting here, this data is actually where? Whatever data you're collecting here, this data is actually where? It is in the memory. Okay, it's in the memory. That's nothing but RAM. Do you agree with me? Now, until this data is not accepted by the RAM, can you think of storing this particular data into your computers? No. So somebody has designed the architecture of the RAM technically that can be operated via your operating system. Now, let us not go deep into the OS levels now, but this particular data, whatever you're collecting through your language called as C, through that particular structure should be definitely part of the RAM now. Now, within your RAM, your data is always what? It is in the form of zeros and ones. Do you agree with me? It's the binary format. Now, I just want one answer from you. For the person who is designing this architecture, for that particular person, this MBA becomes what? Tell me. Logical. Okay, that MBA becomes logical. But the architectural code, what is writing to store your data in the random access memory, that will become what? Physical. Now, any data in the RAM is permanent or it's not permanent? It's not permanent. So we have to make the data permanent. If you want to make your data permanent, where you should keep it? In the disk. Okay, you should keep it in the disk. Now, generally, any data we keep it in the disk will be in the form of what? Any data we keep it in the disk will be in the form of what? Files. So somebody your colleague, say like is extending this particular process and is trying to keep this particular data in the form of a file. Now, for the person who is creating this file pointer is actually what? Physical. Okay, that file pointer is nothing but physical structure for him. This RAM will become what for him? Logical. Now, from the file, I think I need to transfer my data into a storage location that will be in the form of file structures. And these file structures are collected into your criteria and composition of your disk. Now, for the person who is actually managing, the disk, the data on the disk is in which structure for him? Physical. For that particular person, this file pointer will be what? Logical. Now, how you can take the logical and physical structure definition just by one single line, what we take it from the books now? It's purely depending on the context. Are you catching the point? Now, learning your database management system software, in next few classes, you will be learning multiple different number of database management system objects. Now, whatever kind of object you created, that will become what for you? Physical. and that particular object is managed in which particular metadata, that metadata will become what? Logical for us. Therefore, a database management system developer should always have the fundamental knowledge of understanding the context of the logical and physical structures. Are you catching my point? Are you catching my point? I'm very, very slow only with the criteria and composition of the beginner's man. Are you getting me? So when you write a single line of code, behind that entire process, how much of work is happening, just try to understand. So every programming language is nothing but it's a abstraction to the criteria of the underlying architecture. Do you agree with me? So once you get into your databases also, you should understand within your database, whenever you're working, what is physical, what is logical is a context of implementation. It's only a context of implementation. Be very, very clear about that. Now, I'm not expecting that you became an expert in this, but I think you got some fundamental idea more clearly than what it was yesterday. Can I expect that from you? Just keep that in your mind. As we go down through the course, we'll be getting more clarity on these constructs, man. Okay, just to make you convenient, I'll take one more level. Okay, just come along with me. This entire process, whatever you're storing, finally you have to make a presentation to the end user. Yes or no? Now, for a front-end technology developer, this becomes what? Physical. All this particular criteria, whatever you have done in the back end, is becoming what for him? Logical. So can any software engineer, can work if he is not having clarity to the context of the logical and physical structures? See, there are many people who can work without knowing all these definitions. But what I say is your ability can be really questioned if you're not having clarity on these concepts. Am I clear with you? So that's one cycle, man. That's one cycle. So where the problem actually begins and finally where a solution comes out, you should understand. Now, can this entire process be a one single man army? No. Therefore, if anybody says that I want to learn all technologies in the world, it's wrong. See, industry says that you need to be multi-skilled. Multi-skilled doesn't mean that multiple technologies. See, understanding this entire process, I'm a multi-skilled person, means I know very well where exactly the problem starts, how to analyze it, how to keep it into the programming language, what is happening in the background of the criteria, and finally where it is going as solution to the front end. I may not be an expert in all these areas of my computer sciences, but I have clarity. Therefore, I can work with my team members who are actually giving the services in these areas. So when your context and concepts are clear, you can always work within your team very effectively without having any issue of confusion and ambiguity. Am I clear? So with all this, let us just take one more level of criteria, man. Okay, let us say like the same kind of form I'm having with me. Let us say this is a front end form that has been developed. But any data the end user is entering here, it should be accepted and it should be kept as a criteria of some collection. Do you agree with me? For that, let us say you're taking a language called as Java. You're taking a language called as Java. In a language like Java, all the data you have to collect by putting that into a criterial structures called as classes and objects with methods. Am I correct? If you are a Java developer, the classes and objects what you're creating, they become physical structure for you. Do you agree with me? But whatever is happening in the front end architecture, that front end architecture components will become logical structure for the Java developer. Am I correct? Now, whatever you are trying to design in the form of classes and objects in Java with the methods, now I don't think they are permanent by nature. So now you just think like you're connecting yourself to some kind of database. Okay, you're just getting connected to Oracle DB connector, and then you are trying to work in Oracle. Now within your Oracle, you cannot keep anything in the form of classes and objects and methods of Java. It's not possible like that. So within your Oracle, you are trying to recognize them in the form of tables and rows and columns. And these tables and rows and columns, they are in integration to the Java classes and objects and methods. Do you agree with me? So for an Oracle developer, the tables, rows and columns are what? Physical. And for him, the Java classes and objects and methods are what? Logical. Is it not vice versa on the process? Now, these Oracle tables with rows and columns, they need to be part of your database at any point of time. Be very, very clear about that. So technically, you need to put them into Oracle database, but Oracle database may not keep your tables, rows, and columns as it is, because it has to keep any data in the context of the operating system. Operating system always recognizes the data in which form? Tell me. Operating systems, they always recognize the data in which form? Files. They will recognize the data in the form of files. So now your Oracle database internally should convert your tables, rows, and columns into database files. So within the Oracle's internal architecture, these database files are becoming what? Physical. Tables, rows, and columns are becoming what? Logical. For a person who is developing these tables, rows, and columns, they are physical. For him, the internal Oracle architecture data files are what? Logical. So I think this logical and physical structures are absolutely context based by the area where you are giving your services within your rule of the industry. Do you agree with me? Now, these particular database files, they are technically moved towards your operating system file format, adjusting those particular files exactly to the requirement of the operating system. Operating system is collecting all this particular piece of the data in your criteria and composition of your file structures, and these particular file structures are converted to physical storage devices which are actually managing your data as per the construct of the technological arrangement that is expected. So who says that logical and physical structures are only the concept of the Oracle database? Every technology, wherever you work, the concept and context of logical and physical structures is there. Am I clear? Hello. Now it is your responsibility to make yourself dig deep into analysis and understand certain criterias. You just read 2 lines of what the book says, you can't really understand what is exactly happening behind these compositions. Throughout your life, when you're part of the software industry, this logical and physical concept should be running in your brain. Because as a software developer, if you do not balance yourself in integrating and interacting through these logical and physical structure compositions, finally you can never ever make yourself comfortable in development. Am I clear with you? Many times students ask me, sir, what will happen if I don't understand logical and physical structures? Nothing, man. When you get into your real-time implementation and you have to develop some critical compositions, it may be a problem for you. There are many cases where people tell me, sir, my friend doesn't know any of these things, is working as a software engineer. See, 80% people are always working, man. Don't worry. But are you that 20% who are the best? Don't keep yourself into that 80%. Okay. Because of your educational qualifications, you will get your job. Don't worry. So I'm not at all talking about the 80% of the people are software engineers in the industry. I'm only worried about being in my sessions. Are you the 20% who are the best brains, who can always give the best solutions in the best way to the industry? If that is your focus, you have to participate along with me. If that's not your focus, I cannot help you. Therefore, never ever make a comparison of yourself with anybody else. Okay, saying that, sir, my friend doesn't know all these things, my colleague doesn't know he's working. Let them work. Let them work. Everybody should have his own opportunity. But are you getting the best opportunity? So before we keep our leg into the database management system softwares, practically to understand SQL statements and all this, we need to have some idea. See, we can't discuss about these constructs in so detail in the coming days. Once I take you into the practical side, no way. Can I make a move? Anyhow, you have anywhere 2 or 3% of the confusions, you don't worry now. Okay, removing your confusions and working out with you is my responsibility. So now once we are very specifically clear with the criteria of the logical and physical structure constructs, what are the basic fundamental features of a database? If you say that you want to develop a database, what are the basic fundamental features? Means either you are developing a database or I'm developing a database or somebody else is developing the database in the world. What are the basic fundamental features we all people should understand? Anytime you say that it's a database, your database should provide access to the external tables, which are files outside the database, as if the rows are stored in the files were actually the rows stored in the tables. If you can just go back by one level and come here. Now, actually, the end user is giving the data like this. Do you agree with me? Is this particular data is exactly the same when it is coming into the classes and objects of your Java? Definitely not. For see, the internal state of the machine value is same, but the format is not same. It has already changed. The data types have changed. Now, is it the same thing that is happening when it is coming into the Oracle database? The structural and architectural standards are changing. So finally, your data is in the form of a file. Now, your data is in the database or your data is actually in the control of the operating system in the form of a file. What is your opinion? The control of the operating system in the form of a file. Now, the end user gave the data like this. The end user gave the data like this. Now imagine when the end user is requesting the data, you have to return the data in the same style to the end user, or you will return the data to the end user in zeros and ones now. What is your opinion? Same style. So every database should have the ability, to take the data from the end user and keep the data in the files which are stored on your disk in the form of rows and columns. When the end user is requesting the data, database should go outside its environment. Database should go outside its environment where these files are not actually part of the database. They are part of the operating system control. It should go there, get the data once again, and convert that particular data into the rows and columns what the end user can understand. If your database is not having this ability, you just imagine how many lines of code you have to write in your real time. So every database management system software is technically preparing its architecture in such a way that you are able to contact your files outside the database, read the data from the files and convert the data in the form of rows and columns, and then give that particular data to the end user. Therefore, when we develop any database application, I think there should be some methodology for that. Do you agree with me? If we don't follow a particular methodology, can we expect the application to be developed? Definitely not. So what is the course of database application development? If you say that sitting in my sessions, you want to become database developers, then definitely you should understand the fundamental course with which a database application is developed. So just keep your concentration very, very clear. By the time we complete our entire course, this is your agenda of responsibility before you knock the door of the industries. On every point I'm speaking at this level, we are going to see practically how that will be happening at the later stages. We cannot come back to these concepts of discussions once again. Catch me point to point very properly. Your database application development is a process of multiple steps. If anybody says that database application is developed in one single step, it's wrong. It's a process of multiple different number of steps depending upon the size of your application you take. But under fundamental sense, 4 stages are there. Okay, under fundamental sense, 4 steps are compulsory. So when you deal with a construct, each step of database application development deals with some specific responsibilities. Every step has some specific responsibilities. Why I'm telling you is, when you get your job, you are definitely working for developing a database application. Now, will the company will give you the total responsibility of developing that application? No. So you are definitely participating in some particular area within your database application development. Am I correct? Now you may be in which step nobody can say. Therefore, you need to understand everything. Therefore, just watch. The first step is creating the structures. When I say creating the structures, it always involves, okay, creating structures involves creation of all the physical structures that are essential to manage the actual business data. To manage your end users business data, we have to create the structures and keep them ready. Keep them ready means we are creating the metadata structure of the business data. That is the first step. Am I clear? Where this step generally involves the creation of structures which can manage the performance and optimization also. As your size of the data increases, the speed of the database should increase, and it should be very practically flexible to the end user, or it should decrease. Tell me, it should increase. Client is never ready to compromise the speed. Do you agree with me? So we need to develop certain kinds of structures which are not only for storing the data, but those kind of structures that can give performance and optimization also. That is also the responsibility in the first level. Once this is done, these structures are always used by only one single person or one single developer, or they are used by multiple developers and multiple users. What do you mean? Multiple. So I need to keep these structures very safe and see that they are not damaged and destroyed. Am I correct? So the second step is creating synonyms for the object names that you have created in the previous step. So what do you mean by this? In the second step, it involves the creation of alternate names for objects for the physical structures in the application. In the previous step, whatever kind of physical structures you have created, for all those physical structures, now you're creating alternate names. For every object, we create physically alternate names and we'll keep them. These alternate names for physical structures will be used in application development and programming. Means application developers and programmers, they generally use these alternate names only. As a developer in the classroom, you may be using the original names, but in real time, we don't let them use it. Why? Because if I am the owner of my object, I'm giving this object directly to you. Now, you are not the person who is owner of it. There is a chance you can damage my object or not. Yes or no? Now, once the object is damaged, I cannot question you. So, as a owner, before I give the object to you, I'll create an alternate name and I'll give it to you, such that you will work only on those alternate names, but not on my original object directly. Therefore, any time you drop that object accidentally or wantedly, my original object is safe or it's not safe. Now, how these things can be done, time tells us, let us not worry about that. Okay. So let us just see how these constructs can be done, and we will operate on these particular things, but just try to understand these aspects. Now, your objects are now safe because they are having alternate names. Do you agree with me? Now, objects are collected with data. Am I correct? Objects are collected with business data. Am I correct? Now, this business data will be used and operated by only one single user or multiple users in the system. Multiple users. Now, shall we show the total data to all the users, or we should show specific amount of data according to the necessity and the priority and the privilege of that user? What is your opinion? Specific amount, yes or no? But how to control this? How to control this? So the next part of the application development will involve with viewing objects in different databases according to the need and necessity of that specific state. Okay, we will try to view the objects in different database with different kinds of structural state that is coming through, where all the data is coming from one single location only, but it looks as if it is coming from different number of objects in the system. So this step involves creation of logical structures called as views, which abstracts the actual physical structures. Views will help in providing different perspectives of the same object as per the requirement of the business. Okay, that same object, for different perspectives in the business, it looks in a different way. So how this is possible? That is what we have to learn. That is the reason you are sitting in these particular classes. Now, a database application is a collection of many different number of objects or only few objects. Come on, many different number of objects. Now, everybody should have every permission and every operation on the object, or few permissions and few operations. Few permissions and few operations. So I need to control the privileges now. That's the last step, restricting access to the objects. So we will decide in this step who should insert the data, who should update the data, who can delete the data, who can select the data, what he can select, who can drop the objects, who can modify the object. These all things will decide in this particular place. It involves an access restriction upon the objects for operational privileges. This step will help us in controlled access to the data and database objects as per the level of hierarchy. You take any small or any big database management system application projectman, these 4 steps will be there. According to experience, You may be working in any one area, or you may be working in 2 or 3 areas. It all depends. But finally, once you get into your industry, you will be kept into which particular area in your project, when and where you can't estimate. Therefore, by the time we complete this entire course and I say SQL is completed, the day when I say SQL is completed, that day you should have confidence in all these 4 stages. So I can say your responsibilities are beginning very slowly now. Now, with all these things, what we are trying to do, the final goal is to collect the business data of the client. Do you agree with me? Now, the question that arises is, what is the basic unit in which we will store the data in Oracle or any database management system software? If we want to store the data, what is the basic unit? So within the Oracle database, the basic structure or the basic unit for storing the data is a table. Now you are storing the data, or I am storing the data, or anybody is storing the data. The basic unit for storing the data is a table. Therefore, every database developer should understand every concept of the table. Am I clear? Every concept of the table. Database tables, they are always holding the user accessible business data. Okay, your database tables are always holding the user accessible business data. Now every table, each table has a set of columns and rows. Every table in the database application manages the data by the rules of the relations. Every table manages the data by the format that is applicable to the business. Means what your business is actually expecting, in that particular format only the tables should manage the data. So does tables have any intelligence by themselves? No. So who should provide the intelligence to the table for managing the business data? It's a developer. It's a database developer. So I think it's your responsibility. Yes or no? So for that, I think you're getting ready. So let us just try to have a practical visualization of what we are speaking. So every database application will have some certain development steps, out of which the step one of your database application is basically the area where your actual criteria of the application development begins. So within your step one, as I already said, you are creating the data structures. Okay, the first step is creation of data structures. This is the step where you are creating the data structures for data storage. Am I clear with you? If you are a Java developer, you may be creating classes. If you are a C language programmer, you may be creating structures. Because we are Oracle developers and we are database developers, we are creating the structures which are fundamentally called as tables and indexes. We are creating the structures which are called as what? Tables and indexes. Sir, what are tables? What are indexes? A great lot of discussion and debate in the coming days. So just don't worry. Catch the points here. Once all your tables and indexes are created, now they are technically ready for collecting the data and operating with the data. Do you agree with me? But the rule of the database application development says that do not share your original tables or your indexes directly to any other developer or end user. Keep them safe such that they cannot be destroyed and damaged accidentally or wantedly. Therefore, the second step will start in your application development technologically to make that process of protection to the structures to happen. And in this particular step, we are actually trying to create alternate names for original data structures. This is only for structural shareability and safety. This step is only for the sake of structural shareability and safety. Am I clear? And this step in Oracle database is created with a concept called as synonyms, where within Oracle there are two kinds of synonyms. One is called as public and the other is called as private. Now, what is the difference? We will see. Let us not worry. If you are a Java developer, can you tell me what is the second step in real-time Java development? First step is creating classes, man. Okay. First step is creating classes. That's okay. What is the second step? In your programming languages like Java, wonderful, wonderful, Naidu. It is called as creating references. Creating references. Do we have the same step in languages like C, C++? In C and C++, the same step refers to pointers, okay? Creating pointers to the actual physical objects. So I don't think the story is different if we are coming from any technology. The only difference is in a language like Java and C++ or C, you have to write 1,000 lines of code for doing all these things. In your Oracle-like environment, it's a single line or maybe 10 lines. Are you catching the point? Now, once these particular structures are, alternate structures are created, then your step 3 will begin, where in your step 3, we are technically worried about how the data can be accessed. Means we want to give more security and more privacy to the way the data is accessed by the people. Because for a particular person for whom the data is not essential to be viewed, imagine I'm providing it, it's waste of time, resource, and above that, my privacy is lost. Therefore, the next fundamental step is creating relational or object views. Okay, we create relational or object views upon the database objects, which is for data privacy by the user. And these things are called as practically views in your Oracle database, where your views are of two types, relational views and object views. Once this is done, everything is in place now. But the only thing is we should give the permissions as per the necessity that arises. So that's the step 4, what you're finally planning. And this is a step where we will try to restrict the access privileges. We'll restrict the access privileges. So this access restriction upon the transactions or manipulation for the data and the database objects will be done, which is applied through authorization and authentication for the transactions. And in Oracle-like environments, we implement this by granting the permissions and revoking the permissions. Okay, we call that as privilege management. Under this privilege management, we grant the permissions and we revoke the permissions. If these 4 stages are successfully completed, our SQL is completed, man. Okay. The day when I say that our SQL is completed, that day you should check whether I completed all these 4 stages, practically making you understand to the relevance and requirement of your real-time industry or not. So that is our entire agenda for the sake of the application development. Okay. Now, there are many more number of activities that are involved, but they are not for application developers. Okay, you should not forget, I told you in my previous class, we have other kind of actors called as database administrators. Okay, so we need to understand that their responsibilities are from that side. So as a developer, you don't need to keep your head into that. Are you catching the point? Now, all this criteria, if you're putting it into a proper framework and execution, that's your application development process in database using your SQL, man. Are you getting clarity? Are you building your confidence? So as we go down through the course, we will be working with the criteria and compositions in the similar manner for everything what we need to understand. Every point with every step we will be covering up. Now, you may have your own anxiety and excitement, but for the first time beginners, I need to make the points very clear. So we'll be going on point to point of the discussion very effectively. With all this, every database definitely need to take these steps into its controlment. But every database has its own architecture or not? Come on, every database has its own architecture or not? Now, internally, what is happening, let us not worry, but at least the fundamental storage architecture of your Oracle database, I think we have to understand. So I don't want to do it half the way. Now it's time to understand the style with which your Oracle actually tries to store the data. See, I'm not taking you into the depth of implementations, man, because that entire technicalities you cannot catch up immediately. But there are certain things you need to just understand. Even if the terminology is looking complicated, you have to catch it first of all. As I take you into the course, the things will be looking easy. Anyhow, I started kickstarting myself into the Oracle integrated requirements. So within another 2 or 3 sessions, we will be looking into how installation of your Oracle can be done on your machines and how we can get connected and we can start working. Okay. So far, I think you're comfortable with the process. So let us see what's waiting for us in tomorrow's session. With respect to the standards, what we need to add up. Thank you very much. Once again with you tomorrow. Have a nice day. Take care of yourself.